Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Mike Flair. Thanks for checking in my channel. Thanks for watching. And today, I want to talk about the skills that you need that could increase your chances of success in IT, working in IT. Because I've been working over 9 years, somewhere 9 to 11 years, somewhere in there. I don't really count the years. I just worked in it for a while since I was about 26, 27, something like that. And I'm about 40 now, so. But pretty much, I want to talk about before you get into technology, these are the kind of skills that you need to have, that you need to work on that will increase your chances to get into IT and increase your value while working in IT. In my opinion, being a minority black man working in IT, some of the stuff I can't really get deep into like I would want to because I'm still working. So I gotta have some wisdom when explaining some of it, which I probably use. However, let me know in the comments. I'm working on making a Patreon, like $1 membership or something that people can join, so we can have those conversations and talk about those things that I think young black minority, black or minority men need to understand when going into the IT field, working for companies and stuff like that. Explain it in a way where it makes sense and things you just gotta understand and don't get caught up in the frustration of it. I'll explain some of that on here, but let me know in the comments if I work on making a Patreon, would you like to hear those things, those tough conversations that we can talk about, and it's more of a private situation than everything in the public. Because some things is not made for public consumption. Some things are private. And Patreon is kind of like a private room unless you want to join. But those things I really want to teach kids. If I can find a building, I'm working my way up to it, but I'm not gonna say if. When I find a building in Southwest and I can bring kids in that wanna be in IT, that wanna go in the corporate space, I would teach them not just the skills of IT, but life skills, minority skills that you gotta have, emotional intelligence, understanding, about covering your tail at all times. Like understanding that you don't always get the benefit of the doubt as being a minority male. Things of that nature. And I can give you scenarios and everything, but a lot of that stuff is stuff you kind of get private. Unless I was like, say, Bill Gates or something, and I was a billionaire and I didn't work for nobody, I could just go hard in the paint, but not at that level yet. Getting there, but not at that level yet. So before you get into technology, the number one skill that you gotta have, I think in any business, but definitely IT, is communication. Communication is so important that most of the time you're communicating, whether you're typing, explaining on a ticket what you're doing, whether you're talking to a user about their computer issue. Sometimes you may be talking to them while you're working on the issue. You never know. Depending on your communication level, where you are on the prism. Are you a high-level communicator or are you in the lower level of communication? Just depends on where you're at. Everybody's different. But the higher you can move up on the prism of communication, the more your value will increase. Communication in meetings. They ask you what's your status, what you got going on. If you can communicate that, you can sum it up in like a 2 or 3 sentence. you're good. So they say, hey, Mike, what's your status? Well, when I worked in help desk, well, I got to go over to the call center, got to help them with some issues. They're having issues with RAM. I'm gonna go over there and look into their computer, see what we can do about the RAM issue. And after that, I gotta run over to another department and check on some things with their Microsoft Windows updates and stuff like that. That's pretty much it. They'll say, oh, okay, cool, sound good. Then they go over to the next person. But if you can't communicate that, if you get stuck, now it seems like that spotlight get brighter. But you have to practice. You have to know that communication, like depending on where you at, and really understand how to explain what you're doing, especially as a minority. You gotta know how to explain what you're doing. Your communication gotta be on point. Not saying that you have to be PhD level communication, but communication enough to where people understand what you're doing. Like you don't have to say big words in Latin and Greek. I'm not a Latin and Greek guy. Guys, I'm from Southwest. I'm from the inner city. I don't do all that. I know how to explain myself in a way to where people know what I'm doing. If I want to be funny, I can be funny too. I got a sense of humor. My sense of humor is very wide and very diverse. It's all over the place because I watch everything and I listen to all kinds of music. So I can kind of relate to people, different people and where they at. So articulation, you got to be able to articulate what you're doing. Sometimes, if you're good at it, you may talk about something that they may not even know what you're talking about, but just because you know how to articulate it. Example, for me, I can give it to people in analogies. I can give it to you straight up, or I can give it to you subliminally, however you want it. It can be fried up and cooked. One time when I was doing help desk, this happens a lot when you work in help desk, is everybody's situation, everybody wants their situation to be priority, but they don't know that you got 5 other tickets that you're working on. So instead of her saying, I got 5 or 10 tickets that I'm working on, I told her that, listen, I'm the Waffle House cook. You got 5 orders ahead of you. You just put your order in, but I'm working on 5 orders right now. Please let me knock out these 5 orders and I get to your omelet or whatever on the grill, whatever you put on the grill. But let me get to those first. She said, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. No worries. And sometimes you just gotta explain it to people, like that. Articulation, situational awareness. This is one of the things, not just minority, but anybody. Situational awareness, knowing when times are critical, knowing when things are a little laid back, and knowing when it's like the in-between. Some people make their situations more critical than others. Some people, they say just get to it when you can. There are some people that don't say it at all. It's like their position tells you got to get to it right now. Some companies, the higher up people like the CEOs and stuff like that, usually they ask you to do something, you probably gonna go ahead and hop on that now because they control their company. If you give them a bad experience, they can call your manager and say, who's that guy that came to help me work on my computer? Some tall guy? Oh, that was Mike. Well, I didn't like the way he came and helped me. I think he had a bad attitude. He can end your job or you can get written up right there on the spot. You can lose your job just like that if you go too crazy. So you have to be able to think about that in your head, that awareness, situational awareness. Some people do use their positions to power play. Some people say, nah, that's not true. But sometimes that's the case. It just depends on the company, You just gotta have that situational awareness to understand, oh, this person's trying to power play me. Another one is the culture. What's the culture like at the job? You know, you got some cultures where it's like super straightforward. I mean, they're straight as an arrow, you know, by the book. You got some cultures, it's kind of like the office, just kind of laid back, you know, humor. You know, they have little festivities, you know, potlucks and stuff like that. Holidays, it's kind of laid back. And then you have some cultures where it's just quiet, introverted, you know, everybody's kind of quiet into themselves. And guess what? When you work at a job, you may have cultures within cultures. You know, you may have one big culture that's the company, but every department has their own culture. You know, some departments, I worked at a small company, the project managers was really quiet, and they was right next to the part. They was really quiet. They didn't really make a lot of noise. They was real to themselves, unless you had to work with them. Another department where I worked, it was like graphics, graphic design. They was real particular about their Macs. They always was real ticky about it. Always wanted to update Adobe. You know, they was real big on their Apple products and Adobe products. Every time something new came out, they expected us to just come down there and just install it just like that. And they didn't realize we got other stuff going on. The world don't revolve around y'all. But that's the kind of stuff you deal with when you're dealing with the culture. Like, I used to even joke about it. Those guys love their Macs, man. And a lot of times when you go by their office, they ain't even really doing it like that. They may either do it at the last minute, or they'll just get it done early and they just be sitting at their desk, you know, looking at colors. And they was real big on the colors and stuff. Like, you know, instead of saying pink, they'll say magenta. Instead of saying blue, they say cyan. Or, you know, have some other kind of blue, you know, tropical sand blue, whatever. And, you know, real big on, let's say Apple architecture. They was real big on that. But that was their culture in graphic design. They was real big on Macs. Always had to have the new Mac. And I always asked them some kind of gadget that worked with the Mac computer, iMac or whatever. Personalities. Understanding most of your job is dealing with personalities. You might have a manager. Most of the time, most managers, there's three personalities. There's the laid-back manager, there's the manager, and then there's the manager that's kind of, I want to say, like the insecure manager, right? They'll teach you kind of like the Kung Fu movies. They'll teach you 9 moves, but they won't teach you the 10th move because they don't want you to be able to defeat them, or they feel like their job's at jeopardy so they can't teach you everything. You got those kind of managers. You just have to be able to fill out the manager. Every manager's different. Sometimes it be different styles mixed into one. But in my opinion, the best manager is a manager that allows you to be you, that allows you to grow, and understands the environment that you're working in, and will cover you up to a point. Now, some won't cover you. They'll just, you know, they don't give you the benefit of the doubt. Like if somebody say you did something, even if you had a record of dependability, even if you were reliable, somebody say you did something because they don't like you, or just whatever reason, I don't know. They won't give you the benefit of the doubt. They will question you like you did it. And even if you explain the situation, sometimes they still will. It's almost like they won't say that you didn't do it. They won't say that you did do it, and they say that you didn't. They won't say that you didn't do it as well. It's kind of like weird. It's kind of like they're in the middle, because it's like the user word versus your word. And if you got a manager that understands this personnel, he'll be able to know if by what the person's saying that probably there's some truth, because sometimes people may have some truth, but then they put the mustard and mayonnaise and make the hot dog look bigger than what it is. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding, and instead of clearing it up with you, they'll go let your manager know and cause more frustration. But that goes back to communication and articulation. So communication is a big thing. So the next thing is understanding politics as a minority in the company. Politics, we're not talking about White House politics. We're not talking about, city and law politics. We're talking about politics within a company, pretty much like the pecking order. CEO, secretary. Sometimes that could be the most powerful position in the company because she's connected to all the higher ups. And if you do something she don't like, she can let them know and you can lose your job. Politics. Sometimes we talk about diversity. You look at different departments or higher leadership, and you look up there and it's all apples, no oranges, or all oranges, no apples, no diversity. And when there's no diversity, that means that you really got to cover your own bases. You really got to cover yourself, because a lot of times when you're the minority, a lot of things that are nuances that you do and understand that the majority don't understand because they're not a part of the minority. And there's no diversity to say, hey, did you not know that? Did you not know that, the minority are dealing with this? Did you not know that? When you don't have that, it makes it have like big old gaps and divides and a lot of nuances that's something that is hard. That's probably a whole video within itself. And then, like I say, if you hit me up in the comments, let me know if you like a Patreon or some kind of like a private conversation on there. I think that'll be pretty cool. But understanding the politics within a company, like HR. HR works for the company. They don't work for you. And sometimes people fall into that trap thinking that, if I tell HR something, they're going to protect me. Well, what happens is, let's say you tell HR, my manager's not treating me right. My manager is being belligerent, being rude, and they go approach the manager. After they talk to their manager and they bring that to the manager's attention, what do you think is going to happen? It's probably going to be rough for you. That's why a lot of people don't say nothing. That's why a lot of people don't go to HR, because they don't want to make their trail rougher than what it is. So understanding politics, understanding that some people play the politic game like brown nosers. They brown nose their way to a certain position, or they buddy with somebody that put them in a certain position. You'll find that out too. That the person they got hired in this position, they go to church together, or they best friends. I've seen situations that this person is like a high-level manager and they only have a high school degree. But if you fill out for it, they're going to tell you need to have a master's degree. And that person got the job because they knew the right person. Politics. Learning how to network in communication, learning how to network, because the person you meet in college or the person you meet at an event or just going out to eat or something, that could be the person that could call you and say, hey, I got this position I want you to fill out for. Happens all the time. You'd be surprised. And what I would tell you is, most of the time, nothing is random. Most of the time, things are happening behind the scenes, or things are happening because of dots are being connected through other kind of situations, through communication, through networking, having the skill set and the value. But most of the time, things are not happening. Think about the president. The president, you don't go fill out an application to be the president of the United States. And I just leave it at that. It ain't like going to Walmart, getting a job, fill out an application, then you have an interview. That's not how things work at a certain level. That's not how things work. The last skill, this is probably next to communication, in my opinion, next to communication, is troubleshooting skills, learning how to troubleshoot something. Process of elimination, like if a Windows computer having an issue, what's the process you go through to troubleshoot that? How do you go about troubleshooting that? Learning how to figure stuff out without a manual. How do you go about solving an issue that, this is the first issue somebody's seen? How do you go about solving it? How do you go about researching it? How do you go about fixing it? And then with communication, you have to explain it to the user. Say, hey, I got to go look into this. Give me some time, and I'll come back and try some things out to see if that remedies this problem. That right there will increase your value, learning how to figure things out without somebody having to hold your hand and tell you every time. Because most managers don't have time, or they just don't want to, because they're a manager. They got to do other things. They don't want to hold your hand through every little thing. They're gonna probably guide you through a few little things, and you have to pick up on what they're doing. Learn situational awareness, learning about your surroundings. That's part of troubleshooting. And the golden rule, which I would tell anybody, whether you work anywhere, learn about where you're at. Learn about the surroundings. Like me working in IT, every company I work for, I learn about the systems that they use, the servers, networking equipment that they use. How do they got the infrastructure set up? How is the cabling ran? What do they use for their services? Management, how do they do meetings and stuff like that? I learned about all of this stuff. It's like a chessboard. You want to learn about every section of the chessboard. Every section, you want to learn about all of that. And troubleshooting, you want to learn how to figure things out without somebody holding your hand. If you can do that, and a problem come up and you can solve the problem without doing it, and I always tell my manager, I can solve any problem. It's just, it may not be the way that you want to do it. If you let me do it the way I do it, I probably can solve it. Because I may do it a Rambo way, I may do it the Born Identity way, or I may do it by the book. It just depends on the situation. Sometimes you gotta be like Rambo. Sometimes you gotta go into the jungle and come out alive. Sometimes situations like that. Sometimes you gotta go by the book. Sometimes there's a manual you gotta read, but you gotta go find the information. But that's an ability to be able to troubleshoot, solve, and remedy problems from scratch. They say, we got this problem, here you go, let me know the results. A lot of times, they don't even care how you solve the problem. They just want it solved. They don't even care how you got there. So this is Mike. Let me know in the comments what you think. Skills that you need to have before working in IT. Before you get into tech. And this will increase your value, no problem, without question. This is Mike Flair. I'm signing out. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm signing out.